Alright, welcome along. My name's DJ Bosh, and I saw in a Facebook group that I'm in, the dub producers group, that someone wanted a kind of guide to making dub. So I'm no expert. It is kind of my favourite thing to make. I make a bit of something that's like a blend between dub and dubstep. Dub reggae and dubstep, should be said. So yeah, let's just start from scratch. We're going to make a tune, probably spend about half an hour doing this. And I'm just going to go through from the start how I make a tune. Yeah, so let's just get straight into it. So first thing I want to do is drop in a kick. What you'll notice here is that I've got my track split up into channels, kind of like you would on a dub mixer, like an 8-channel live dub mixer. So I've got a kick drum, snare drum, hats, shakers and percussion, which is kind of interchangeable, bass, which I've got split into the sub bass and the sort of mid bass, the skank, which is usually where you put your guitar or piano, melody, just for any extra melody lines, and then audio is just a spare channel to put anything in. So let's start with a kick. And like I say, I'm just going to go through this exactly how I would usually do it. I've also chosen to do this in Ableton 10 because I feel like a lot more people have got 10 at the moment. I've been using 11, sort of exploring how a lot of things with that. I tell you what, one thing 11 has got is way better reverb and delay options. But let's go with 10 for now. So let's find a solid kick. Let's have a look. I know where my kicks are. Now, here we go, heavyweight kicks. And in regards to this, I just like to just go through and pick something you like, really. Something that's not got like an extra hi-hat on. I find a lot of kick samples have an extra hi-hat in there for some reason. No idea why. There we go, that's a nice kick. So let's put that in there. Let's find... There we go. So that kick's got a bit boomy. There's a lot of sort of end, tail, bottom end sub on there. So what I'm going to do is go to this fade out option here. I'm using drum rack, by the way. Let's move this fade out option. And then all I want to do is take this little arrow here and drag it until we get rid of a lot of that boomy sub on there. And what that does, it just stops all this sub here messing around with your sub bass. So for now, let's just put one in there. Simple. And let's find a snare. Now for dub and dub reggae, I like to find something quite short and snappy. So either a proper snare that's quite short, or a rim. So for this, let's find a rim. So I'm just going to search in there. Let's try and find one. Let's go Rack and Ruin pack. Okay, not that one. Okay, and it's just a case of finding something you like when you're picking your samples and stuff. There's no real guide on how you're supposed to do this.
26-inch rims, 26.
Okay, not that. Let's have a look. Let's go Just Blaze, see what he's saying. That's a nice one. So you'll notice here that this sample doesn't actually start where it's supposed to right at the start. So all you can do is drag this arrow across here. And there we go, your sample starts in the right place. And then I'm going to put this right in the middle of the bar here on the third beat. And if you listen to this. Okay. So before we start playing around with that snare or the rim, let's get some hats in there. I like to use the most natural sounding hats possible. Let's find... I've got a pretty good hi-hat selection here. I usually go with those top ones just because they're at the top of the list, but let's go with something different. And what you want to find is two hats that kind of sound a little bit similar, but also got a bit of a difference. So these ones here, I'm going to pick those two, select them both, drag them into my drum rack here. Now, to start with, I'm just going to draw in each one of these on each beat. Let's play this while we're going. Let's up the volume of that a little bit because it's quite quiet. Cool. And then let's draw the second one in on the offbeat. Pardon me. All right, simple. Now, something I like to do is a bit of what they call gain staging. So I try and get everything to sound as loud as possible as it can without going into the red meter on there. So let's just listen to this hi-hat again on its own. And let's get those as loud as we can. Cool. So they're as loud as they can go without going into the red there. Now, the next thing I do personally with these hats is EQ them. So let's go to your audio effects, EQ8. Let's drag that onto there. I don't know if a lot of people know this, if you double click on the EQ8 here, you can make it a lot bigger, which always helps. Now, you see here, there's a lot of stuff going on in that low end here. You don't want that because when you're mastering your track, you're going to end up pushing those low frequencies up into the mix, and you don't really want them. So let's just do a really harsh cut. So I like to select the ×4 section there. That's the strongest one. I'll show you here if you just go onto the regular one. It's not as harsh. But for the hats, I like to do quite a harsh one. And then let's just cut it out and cut it until the point where you start to hear it really affecting the sound. Cool. So I'll probably go about there. And let's have a listen. All right. Let's go back to this rim. Again, we need to do a bit of gain staging on this. So up the volume on that till it sits just below the max. There we go. Cool. So next thing I'm going to do is take these hats all the way down and drag them back in until they sound about the right level, because at the moment they're really loud. So let's take them down. Cool. All right, so next step, let's do some shakers or something. Yeah, let's do some shakers. And where are we going? Samples. And again, the search function. I assume this is in any DAW, they've got to have a search function, right? So let's just go shake. And where can we go? Ultimate Percussion. Let's try and find some solid shakers here. Hits, shaken, and there we go. Right, that's a nice one. I like to get, because the hats are so sort of harsh and aggressive, I like to get a shaker that's a bit loose. So we've got one. That's a nice one. What else? Let's just stick with, yeah, no, let's put one more in. Right, let's drag this one in here. So first thing I'm going to do again is gain stage these. That one's good. That one's sound. Now this one, you'll notice it's got two. It's kind of got the forwards and backwards on the shake. So I'm going to just use the second one. And then let's draw these in alternately, really. Simple pattern. Let's see how that sounds on its own. And then what I'm going to do here, same thing again, same as before with the hi-hats, going to EQ them. There we go. Now, a little thing I do here is there we go. Let's listen to that all together. And you'll notice here my master's clipping, so I'm just going to pull everything down by 1 decibel. Oh, let's go 2 actually. All right, simple dub loop. Now, the next thing I would do probably be the bass line. So let's record on this. Now, I've already got an operator here, but I've not done anything to it. You just want to make sure you're composing in the sub range, so you're looking from around F0 up to F1. If you go any lower than F0, you're going to have trouble hearing it. It's not going to come through even on a really good subwoofer. And then all I'm going to do, what I'd be tempted to do with this, let's turn it up a bit. Now with my bass, a lot of people sidechain bass, but I'm not really, I don't know, because of the way I make bass lines, I don't really like to do that. You should do though. So to make this bass sound a bit smoother, I'm going to just increase the attack a little bit. There we go. A little bit on the delay, on the release as well. Now, in operator, I find it quite important with bass lines to make them monophonic. So you're going to click over into this section here. Go over to voices and click 1, and that just means that only one note can be playing at any one time. So it stops that bleed over with the sub and stops your bass notes sort of wobbling together frequency wise. Alright, so let's just try and record in a simple dub reggae style sort of bass line. That'll do. Alright. Cool. Alright, so again, masters clipping, always keep an eye on that. I like to kind of mix a little bit as I go. Cool. Alright, so next one, let's do a simple piano skank. Again, this is just a real simple introduction on how you can sort of start to make some dub tracks, basically. I'm just winging it here. So let's go to the instrument rack, pianos and keys. Now my two go-to options here is usually the grand piano, which I'm going to put here. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab an organ as well and put that in the melody section. Pardon me. So, we've got a grand piano. Let's get... Alright, let's get an organ in here as well. Actually, no, I'll tell you what. I'll show you how you can make a real easy organ. I'll do that in a second. So... our tune, by the looks of it, is going to be in A minor. Yep. So we're just going to do some A minor chords over the top of that. Too low. Cool. All right. So let's get it going and let's just record that in. Simple, just one chord all the way through. So because of the way I've had to route the audio into my screen recorder so I can record this video, there's a bit of a latency there. But we'll try and play and ignore that. So this is just a creative thing, but now that's in there, I kind of want to change my bass line. I'm not really happy with that. So let's try record something else in bass line wise. Something that's quite nice to do is record your bass line in on a higher octave and then lower it down just so you can hear what's going on a lot more. So I'm gonna crank up. There we go. So you can hear what's going on there, and you'll see what I'm about to do in a second. So I'm just going to play along. That'll work. Cool. All right, that fits a lot better than the other one. So now I'm going to take away all this editing I did here, and I'm going to drop this down into the octave range it's supposed to be in. So one trick I learned with this, if you hold shift, so normally you can just drop this up and down using the arrow keys, but if you hold shift and press an arrow key, it's going to drop it a whole octave. So I want to drop it under the 1 there. Good. All right, so that's the basics. Let's get an organ in there. Now I'll show you a really easy way to make a nice organ in Ableton. So you want to go to your instruments, get operator. And this is what you call bubbling. If you hear people talking in reggae music about bubbling, it's like the bouncy organ that they usually put underneath reggae tracks. So first thing you want to do is, this is operator like the way that it's not the way it operates, the way it runs. So at the moment, operator C goes through B, goes through A, or D, C, B, A. But I'm going to change it so they all run side by side. So you're hearing each one as a pure sort of sound. All right, so we've got a sine wave there. Let's change the coarse tuning of oscillator B up 3. And let's put the volume up. So you're already getting a nice little organ sound. Let's go to C, do the same thing. Let's put it up to 5 maybe. Same again with D. Alright, now because you're running these all at the same time, the volume is going to trip out a little bit. So you're going to have to keep an eye on that. And there, you've got a nice organ. Really simple way to make an old school sounding organ. So let's play in some sort of bubbling. Now you can either do it just one note, and it's going to be on, so this one's on the 2 and the 4. And then you're going to do bubbling by playing in between the 1 and the 2 and the 3 and the 4. So you're going to play on the 1 and 2 and 3 and. You're going to play on that and in between. So let's just have a play around and then we'll record something in. Hold up. So all I've done there is just play the same chord in. Exactly the same chord, but on a different beat. So you can see this one falls on 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This one falls on the 2 and the 4. Alright, so that's mostly what I'm going to do production-wise. I'll go back to the bass and maybe add something in a little bit at the end. I want to kind of keep this around the half-hour mark, so we're not spending too long doing this. But I'm going to start looking at effects and how you can make this sound really authentic now. So the key is to use these send and returns here. You can put some effects on the channels themselves if you want to change the whole sound. But if you're just wanting to do that kind of dubbing thing of putting a bit of a delay and an echo on here and there, you need to use the send and return system here. So you see this return A here. Look how each of these channels has got A and B. These correspond to the A and B return tracks here. Now if you can't see these, if your Ableton looks a bit something like this, you want to go over to this right hand side here, press the S, that brings up the send knobs, and then you want to press the R, and that shows you the returns. So let's look at the snare first, super important one. Okay. So you want to find, let's just find a let's go delay. Let's put a delay in there. Let's use the echo. And you're going to drag this, you're not going to drag it onto the snare, you're going to drag it into your return track here, return A. Cool. Now the first most important thing you need to do when you're using send and returns is make sure this is turned all the way up for at least your first one. Because what you're going to be doing is making basically, the snare is going to be coming through as the pure sound, and then this is going to be coming through as just the effect. So let's have a listen now. So this sounds exactly the same, but if I start to move this A knob up, yeah, you start to hear delay. So there's a couple of methods I'll go through with this. This is the first one. Simple delay, you can change your delay time on there. Put it as notes so it's straight. Let's do that for now. Now, if you want to make that a longer or shorter delay, the normal thing you do is play with the feedback here. Okay? But the way you can sort of do this in a bit of a, I guess, an authentic dub style is to have this sound start feeding back on itself. Now, the feedback knob here does that, but I find it's more effective to use the send options here. So I'll explain how that works. So here you can see as the sound starts to strengthen here, you can hear that sound start to sort of build up. But I want to make it sound a bit more authentic. So what I'm going to do is put this down to 0, so you're only hearing one delay. And then you're going to right click on the send here and click enable send. Now what this does is send the echo back into itself. So that's when you're going to start getting that real nice ringing sort of fed back delay sound. So let's have a play around with this. So that delay is now feeding back through itself. Now, that sounds pretty basic at the moment. Let's hear it with the full tune. Okay. So I'm kind of going to do this for any version of Ableton. So in Ableton 10, you can use this modulation feature. Let's just have a listen to how this sounds. Yeah, let's try this. And then let's change this a little bit. Let's go to dotted again. Let's play around with the modern delay here. Let's change the speed. Alright, so you're starting to get a little bit more variation. It's going to start sounding a little bit more natural. Now, we can add this to any of these instruments, this exact same delay. So instead of having to put a delay on every channel, you can just use one delay and send everything to the same one. So let's take that off and let's put it onto the piano. Cool, so that sounds pretty mad. Let's try. Now what you'll notice with this is you can add it and take it away and it'll carry on playing. So you don't need to worry about turning the reverb on and off if you don't want it on, or you do want it on, the delay, sorry. So let's have a look, just a little go at just throwing it in every now and again. So watch, I'm just going to go to this A knob on each channel that I want to do it on. Let's have a little play with it. Yeah, so you can see how you're starting to get those sort of random effects that you can throw in there, these random sounds. So let's go on to B and let's put in a reverb, just regular reverb. And we can do the same thing. Let's do this, enable send B. So you want to send B back through itself. You can also send A to B if you want to send the echo to the reverb. So let's turn that on. Let's do this. Let's turn that off. Ooh, sorry about that. All right, so this is what happens when you play around with this feedback knob, yeah? If you leave it on too high, then it's going to feed back on itself so much that it just loops and loops and gets bigger and bigger. So something I like to do just to be on the safe side is put a limiter on there. Again, sorry if I've blown anyone's speakers up there. Should have probably preempted that one. And just put this up a little bit. Leave the ceiling just so it's not going to blow our ears off. Let's have a listen now. The size as well, because the size was so small, that reverb was really tight and it just wound up and got too fast. So let's have a careful play with this. So you can hear now we're starting to get a bit more of that organic sound that you get for Dub Reggae. Cool. Now, you can stack effects in here. So you notice in this reverb, I've got a reverb and a limiter. Let's put a delay in there and let's see how that starts to sound now. Let's put a real tight delay in there. Let's take the sync off and let's do time. All right, that's starting to sound a bit more like we want it now. So the second ones, you can leave the dry and wet a little bit off because you want to hear some of this come through. You don't just want pure delay. You might do, but have a play around with it again. So you see how you get that delay now. So we want a little bit of the original reverb signal coming through. There we go, that's nice. Let's turn that feedback down. Cool. At this point, it's all kind of just experimentation, really. So play around with putting your reverbs and delays all together in these send and returns. And let's listen to the whole thing. And again, let's just throw these effects on it and see how it sounds. So you could even leave that on if you want. Yeah. So we've got about 10 minutes left, 5 or 10 minutes, and I'm just going to sort of experiment with what I've already got here. And I'll tell you what, let's put... Why is all that on there? Ah, this was the microphone. Okay, so let's take that off. Let's put in another MIDI channel there at the end. And let's find, what can we use? Any instrument you want, really. So let's go for, let's go for a clavinet, clavinova, whatever you want to call it. Synth Keys. Alright, let's go for, no. Okay, that'll do. And now we can just play around with this and do a little melody line over the top. And then just have a play around with it, have some fun. Yeah. So again, you can add these effects in there. Let's take a little bit of this off so we can hear what's going on. A little bit of that off there. Cool. So let's take a little bit of the feedback off of these, just stop them being so noisy. And again, we're just experimenting. So let's put a little bit of a hard, no, I'll tell you what. Let's play around with these hats a little bit. So you can quite easily afford to take some of your hi-hats out. And then something else you could do is make this a little bit longer, just for the sake of, my phone's going off, just for the sake of keeping things interesting. Let's go to the length section here and click 2 into there, press enter, and now it's twice as long. And then draw that in. Let's put a little bit of a change there. So something else, if you don't know about velocity, if you click and hold, you can drag this velocity up and down, and that's how hard the hi-hat's going to be played. So, I'll tell you what, let's do a little drop here. Alright, see how that sounds. Just the drums for now. Let's turn off the bass and the piano. Yeah, you can strip the shakers back, add a bit of a reverb or delay to them instead if you want. Let's take... So you're already starting to add that background sound, filling out the sound a bit, just by adding the delays and reverbs on there. If you want, now I'm going to EQ these a little bit higher. Yeah, anything like that you can do. Another thing people tend to put in is stuff like bongos and some percussion, so let's do that. I'm going to duplicate this. No, let's not do that. So we've got another MIDI channel. Let's go drum rack and samples, and then I know somewhere around here I'm going to have to find my percussion pack. Any type of bongos will do, to be honest with this. Let's go for hits. Am I in ultimate percussion here? Yeah. Let's give this a second to load. So this is something you'll hear quite a lot in Dub Reggae. Let's put this block in here. And let's just do that. There we go. Let's hear that with everything else. Cool. So another simple thing you can do is, let's just find some real standard bongos. Now, I'll tell you what. Let's put another track in there. Again, drum rack. That's my favourite one. Drop it in, samples, and let's just grab. Let's grab these three, and let's drag them into our drum rack here. And let's have a listen. See how this sounds. Where is it? Now what I'm going to do is put a reverb on those. And I'm just going to put this one on the channel because I wanted this to just be the general reverb that applies to the whole. I want this to apply to them all the way through. So I'm not going to use it as a send and return thing. So let's have a listen and let's have a little play. Now, honestly, that's not really, I feel like it's not in tune, but just another idea of things you can add in for a classic kind of dub reggae sound. So if we take away all the musical aspects, that'll sound a little bit better, I guess. Again, I'm going to take those out because I'm not a big fan of those, but you can play around with those as much as you want. Just think of anything really you want to put in there. Now, we've got our clav. Let's put these back in. Now, something else you might want to do. I'm going to do this as the last thing because we're getting near that half-hour mark now. Maybe a little bit over it. I'm going to just put like a sound bed in there. So what you can do, let me have a look, where is it? I should have somewhere some, I want some like background sound field recordings, this'll do. Alright, this'll be perfect. So here I've got a sound of some birds. It's just a recording I've made at some point on my phone. And again, I'm going to gain stage this, make it as loud as possible, and then bring it down with the fader. And then what I'd like to do with this is just mess around with it. So first thing I want to do is EQ. Again, get rid of any... Oh, God, I've dropped it onto the wrong thing. Get rid of any of those background sub sort of frequencies. So all this I want to get rid of. Let's just... There. And then what I'm going to do is try and put quite an extreme delay on it. I might put an echo and maybe a phaser as well. Let's up the... There you go. So if you turn this up, you can hear... That's literally just some background noise. And that's going to play throughout the whole thing. Cool. Let's see what else we can do. Let's put a C chord in there as well at the end. Where do I want it? There. That's a C minus. I want a C major. Now what I'd like to do here normally is do the same thing for the bubbling. Why has that not changed? 4. Yeah. Anything like that really. Once you've got the bass sounds down, it's up to you to experiment. That's kind of the whole point of dub, is that you can do what you want with it. I know people want to get a certain sound, but that's all created by experimenting with sounds. Atmosphere is really important, so again, that's why I put those birds in there. And I'm going to just sort of play around more with these delays as it plays out. And then take these out. Yeah. Ooh, one more thing I've thought of. This is just if you've got some samples like this, or if you can search for music, gyro. Now, gyro's another classic sound that you hear in Dub Reggae. I've got this, remember, this is in a Dub Reggae sample pack, but I'm sure you can find some online. A good place is a site called freesound.org. Perfect. So let's just put this on this percussion channel. Let's cut off that end bit there, and I'm going to change, make that longer. Actually, no, let's make that 4 bars long. I'm going to duplicate your block there. And then I'm going to put these just before the snare. Yeah, it's just a little thing, but it's just another quite authentic sound that people add in there. So let's have a listen to the whole thing one more time, and then I'm going to finish. Oh God, why is it doing that? I want to click off here. Don't forget you've got that clav in there as well. And that's it. I'm going to leave it there. So that's my quick little dub reggae tutorial. I hope you can get something out of that. Again, just really want to say that dub reggae is mostly about being real experimental with everything. So try different things out. Try different drum patterns, different piano sounds, organs, anything like that. So I'm going to leave it there. My name is DJ Bosh. This has been Bosh Makes a Dub, the long version for YouTube, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.